Ladies and gentlemen, fear has been called the greatest thief of dreams. It robs the mind of courage, it paralyzes action, and it whispers falsehoods until even the strongest heart begins to doubt. But let us remember, fear is not a wall, it is a shadow, and the moment you step forward with decision, the shadow dissolves. Fear, when examined closely, is not the monster it pretends to be. It is a state of mind, nothing more, nothing less. It has no arms to hold you down, no chains to bind you, no weight to crush you. It survives only on the energy of your attention. The more you focus on it, the larger it grows, until it seems impossible to overcome. But when you pause and look deeply, you will see that fear is like a shadow on the wall. It appears enormous when the light is dim, yet the moment you step closer to it, you realize there was nothing solid there at all. Think of the countless fears you have faced in the past. How many nights have you worried about outcomes that never came to pass? How many times did your heart race before a challenge, only to look back afterward and laugh at how small the obstacle really was? Fear magnifies what might happen, but it has no real knowledge of what will happen. It is an imagination unchecked, a story told by the mind without evidence. The truth is this: nothing in life has meaning until you assign meaning to it. The same storm that makes one person shiver in terror excites another with adventure. The difference lies not in the storm, but in the mind. Recognize this, and you take away fear's greatest weapon, its ability to deceive you into believing it has power over your destiny. When you understand fear for what it truly is, a fleeting thought, a mental picture, an illusion, you discover that it can no longer dictate your choices. You realize that courage is not about destroying fear, but about seeing it clearly and stepping forward in spite of its whispers. Once you strip fear of its disguise, you uncover the truth. The only real power it ever had was the power you gave it. Courage does not arrive in a single thunderclap. It is cultivated in quiet choices, in repeated acts of determination that strengthen the spirit. The mind, like the body, grows according to what you feed it. If you nourish it with constant worry, with hesitation and self-doubt, it weakens, just as a muscle neglected will shrink. But when you feed the mind with courage, when you supply it with thoughts of possibility, affirmations of strength, and actions that defy limitation, it expands and becomes a powerful ally. Courage is not born from grand gestures alone. It comes from the daily decision to face what is uncomfortable. Speaking your truth when silence would be safer. Attempting a task when failure seems likely. Standing tall when criticism surrounds you. Each time you choose courage over comfort, you are placing a stone in the foundation of an unshakable mind. Over days, weeks, and years, this foundation becomes a fortress, one that fear cannot easily penetrate. Think of the small victories you have already achieved. Every time you spoke in a room where your voice trembled, every time you attempted something new when others doubted you, every time you took a step forward instead of stepping back, you were feeding your mind with courage. These moments accumulate. They train your mind to believe in itself, to expect victory rather than defeat. The more you give the mind courage, the more it hungers for it. What once terrified you becomes ordinary. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable, and soon you find yourself doing things that others marvel at, not because you never felt fear, but because you trained yourself to rise above it. This is the secret courage compounds. Each act of bravery creates momentum for the next. The mind, once trained to respond with courage instead of retreat, becomes unstoppable. And when the mind is unstoppable, there is no dream too great, no obstacle too heavy, no challenge beyond your reach. Doubt is a silent destroyer. It creeps into the mind like a thief in the night, stealing confidence, stealing energy, and stealing opportunities. It whispers questions that we can resolve. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if others laugh at me? And with each question, the spirit hesitates, the will hesitates, and action is delayed. Nothing paralyzes human potential faster than doubt. But the mind cannot be both doubtful and purposeful at the same time. When you fill it with a clear and definite purpose, doubt has no space to live. Definiteness of purpose is like a compass in the storm. It does not prevent the winds from blowing or the waves from rising, but it ensures you know exactly where you are going. The person without purpose is tossed about by every current. Fear pulls them one way, discouragement another. They waste time, they waste energy. They chase one possibility today and abandon it tomorrow. But the person who has made a definite decision about what they want, who has fixed their heart and mind on a specific aim, cuts through the storm with certainty. Even when obstacles arise, their direction remains clear. When you decide, truly decide, on a purpose that burns within you, something extraordinary happens. Your energy aligns, your thoughts become ordered, and your actions gain power. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start declaring, "I will." That shift alone transforms weakness into strength. The mountain that once looked too high now becomes a series of steps. The challenges that once seemed overwhelming now appear as necessary parts of the journey. History shows us that the men and women who achieved greatness were not free of fear, nor were they free of mistakes. What set them apart was their definiteness of purpose. They chose a goal, clung to it with persistence, and pursued it until the world itself made room for their vision. Doubt could not live in such a mind because there was no room for it to grow. So if you find yourself wrestling with hesitation, the cure is not to fight doubt directly. The cure is to replace it. Replace it with a vision so strong, a purpose so definite, that there is no time, no thought, no space left for fear to whisper. Once you decide on your direction, every doubt becomes irrelevant, and your life begins to move with a momentum that nothing can stop. Fear will never vanish entirely, and waiting for it to disappear before you act is the surest way to remain stuck. Too many people postpone their dreams because they believe courage means the absence of fear. They say to themselves, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll step forward when I'm no longer afraid." But the truth is, readiness never comes by waiting. It comes by moving. The act of motion itself is what dissolves fear. Fear thrives in hesitation. The longer you stand still, the louder the voice of doubt becomes, until even the smallest challenge looks impossible. But the moment you take a step forward, the spell breaks. You realize the dragon guarding your treasure was made of smoke all along. Action is the medicine that fear cannot resist. It weakens with every decision, with every movement, with every bold step into the unknown. Think of the countless victories in your own life that came only after you acted in the presence of fear. You may have feared speaking to someone new, yet once you began the conversation, the fear vanished. You may have dreaded attempting a difficult task, yet once your hands were in motion, you wondered why you hesitated so long. Every success story begins not with the absence of fear, but with the decision to act despite it. Fear is loud before the first step and nearly silent after the second. This is why progress belongs to those who act. The brave are not fearless. They are simply willing to move forward even with trembling hands and a racing heart. Each time you do this, fear's grip weakens and your confidence grows stronger. Before long, what once seemed terrifying becomes routine, and your courage becomes a habit rather than a rare occurrence. Life rewards movement. The opportunities you seek, the doors you wish to open, the victories you dream of, They do not present themselves to those who stand still, analyzing, overthinking, and waiting for certainty. They reveal themselves only to those who act, even when the outcome is unclear. By acting in spite of fear, you teach your mind that you are stronger than the emotion that tries to hold you back. And the more often you teach it, the more unshakable you become. Remember this: fear will always knock at your door, but you do not have to let it sit at your table. The answer is not to wait for courage to arrive. The answer is to move. One step, one action, one bold decision. That is all it takes to reduce fear from a giant into a shadow. Fear is not always the enemy we imagine it to be. In truth, it is often a guide, a signal pointing us toward the very place where growth waits. Every time fear appears, it is as though life is whispering, "Here lies the next chapter of your strength. Here is the edge where you must expand." If you treat fear only as an obstacle, you will run from it. But if you treat it as a teacher, you will approach it with curiosity, with openness, and with the willingness to learn. Think for a moment about the moments in life where fear was strongest. Perhaps it was when you faced rejection, when you risked failure, when you stood before a challenge greater than yourself. Those were also the moments that offered the greatest opportunity for growth. If you had avoided them entirely, you would have remained the same. But by leaning into them, even trembling, you became wiser, stronger, more capable than before. Fear, then, was not there to stop you. It was there to teach you. The lessons fear offers are unique. It teaches resilience by forcing you to rise after falling. It teaches humility by reminding you that you are not yet finished in your learning. It teaches courage by challenging you to act when your comfort zone begs you to retreat. And most of all, it teaches faith in your ability to endure, to adapt, to grow into someone larger than the challenge itself. When you begin to see fear in this light, it loses its power to paralyze you. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid fear?" you begin to ask, "What is this fear trying to show me?" Suddenly, fear becomes not a wall blocking your path, but a doorway leading to new levels of achievement. The very things you fear the most: failure, rejection, loss, carry the potential to refine your character and prepare you for victories far greater than you imagined. This perspective transforms the relationship you have with fear. No longer do you need to resist it, deny it, or hate it. You can welcome it as part of your journey, knowing that each time it arrives, it brings with it a lesson essential to your growth. The most successful lives are not lived by those who never felt fear, but by those who turned fear into fuel, who allowed it to sharpen them rather than stop them. So the next time fear rises in your chest, do not run. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, "What can I learn here? What strength is waiting to be discovered in me?" In that moment, you will find that fear is not your enemy, but your most honest teacher, one that points you directly toward your greatest potential. Friends, fear will always knock at your door, but you are under no obligation to invite it in. Choose faith, choose purpose, choose bold action, and watch how quickly fear vanishes. So stand tall, move forward, and declare with your life, "I have no fear.